go off and her doctor says no.
Well, you'll go back to the situation that your life brought you to the antidepressants to begin with. Like not much has changed. If you're unhappy with like your marriage and your house and your whatever, and you get on antidepressants and now you feel better about it, when you get off, you're back to your crappy marriage.
Yes, I know,
your
but
house,
but that statement right there is like nothing changed when you took the drugs.
you just feel better about it.
Yeah, well, that's silly.
It stops you from making the changes in your life that might make you make you happier.
Make things better.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does. But maybe you're in a situation where you can't make them better, and you're just like, I just want to be happier.
Well, okay, but also, since when is happiness an actual objective? Happiness is a result of I think, well.
So happiness is a deep subject, like happiness and satisfaction or joy, like, so what exactly is happy, right? Like, so you could be satisfied with your current situation, like there's short-term happiness and long-term happiness, like you just call, but you have different names for them. I think a short-term happiness is like, okay, exciting roller coaster.
Right.
Long-term happiness is like, okay, I'm satisfied with what I've done, what this accomplishment.
I've accomplished something. Yeah. I've done something. Yeah. Were you happy after the birth of your children? Are you happy when you see your children, growing up and becoming useful, wonderful young people and soon to be adults?
Yeah, that's probably more of a satisfying. And when they're born, it's kind of like a happy, or a short-term happy. But I think if you just start smoking pot or taking any kind of medication, at a young age, every day, you're never going to reach. That just gives you the short-term happiness. You're never going to reach that long-term happiness.
Well, and of what value? I mean, of what value is simply a feeling of euphoria or a feeling of neutral happiness? Mm-hmm. Because that's the other thing. I mean, have you ever known a heroin addict? I've known a couple of them.
Well, I've known people. It depends why you get on the heroin. It depends on the person is going to be different based on why they're on the heroin. Like people get on like heroin or like narcotics often for chronic pain or something.
Right.
And so
but the guys I knew were musicians and stuff like that.
And actually doing heroin,
shooting heroin.
Yeah, that's a whole different game.
Yeah, and I mean, going out and finding heroin and.
I mean, you have to be so unhappy with your current situation, or just like curious, maybe to see what that is like,
Funny you should mention that. Mm-hmm. I witnessed that happen. I witnessed a guy say, "Yeah, I've got a problem. I'm doing this stuff," and when he confessed it, other people in the room said, "You got any extra? Can we try it?"
Yeah, they're just curious people.
Seriously. Yeah. I mean, I was in the room when that happened.
I wonder if artists are not less happy, just more adventurous. Right?
Well, and or
curious,
chasing euphoria. Mm. You know who? You ever heard of? Come on, is it William Burroughs? Yeah, William Burroughs. He was a 50s and 60s poet and author, and he wrote a book titled Naked Lunch, and it was about being a heroin addict. And it's weird.
Yeah.
Very telling, and probably very descriptive of what heroin is like.
Yeah.
If you can write it down. But he, I think he got off of it at one point in time. Keith Richards was a heroin addict.
Yeah.
For years.
Yeah. Some people get off and on, without problem. Other people, they get off and now their life is so empty. Maybe because they missed all those years, or maybe because it was empty before, so now it's empty again, and it's just like intolerable,
But why is heroin an unacceptable answer to the question of I want to be, or, solution to the I want to be happy problem.
Mm-hmm.
And these other drugs are unacceptable. And the doctors are dealing the other drugs out like candy.
Yeah. Like marijuana or Lexapro or these SSRIs. Yeah. The selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors like Prozac, Lexapro, and those things,
See, okay, now you even knew what it called, selective serotonin
reuptake inhibitors.
So does it help you produce serotonin or does it block serotonin?
Well, what happens?
You need serotonin. I mean, that's
you do
the good stuff, right?
Right. Well, yeah, it's a neurotransmitter that if you have more of, you'll be more placated. You'll be happier, maybe, if we want to use this word happy. So it's a neurotransmitter. What happens to all neurotransmitters mostly is they go in between the nerves to make the other nerve fire, right? So one will let it go, and the other will ooh, look, there's lost serotonin, and it'll start firing, and you'll get these weird pathways, But it lets it go, and then you have an enzyme. It can't just sit around in between the neurons. So you need to get it back into the cell, and so you have a
the enzyme disassembles it again.
Yeah, it probably just grabs it and brings it back in the cell, so it could release it again at a certain point.
But see, we use you are using descriptions. They're very as if descriptions, and as best I can tell, I mean, I remember when I was in the last biology class I was in, which was in like 1970. I remember thinking that of all the things this guy was telling me, enzymes were one of the weirdest things ever, because they're so important. They're such a big deal. And when you described how they work, lock and key, and all these other expressions that it's as if. And as best I can tell, in reality, it's almost impossible to actually, I mean, you can't look at it.
Yeah.
You can't even watch it happen. And you can have an electron microscope and you can stare at them, and I guess maybe you can identify the molecule. You can't even identify the molecule with an electron microscope, can you?
Not really. Maybe, and with some of these, but then those are slightly different microscopes, I think, if you're going to really look at the molecular level, But
But you're not. But once you're doing that, you're not going to watch it do what it does.
Yeah.
Because it can't do what it does when the electron microscope is on.
Yeah. So I guess so. How do you even know what it does, right?
Well, you're seeing the result, and you're using these as if statements and thing. It grabs and it locks and keys, and it performs this function. And who's running that show anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. Who designed the show? The designer of how this works is pretty amazing that it worked this way. So it's just this big protein. But you look at a protein and you're like, okay, let's try a protein, egg whites, and then we'll add, something to it. Let's add a little bit of heat to it. Okay, now you look at the protein and you're like, oh, it's completely different. Like, what happened? You could sort of draw a picture of this protein, and you could see okay, this protein.
Now it's called breakfast.
Yeah, before it's called breakfast for Arnold Schwarzenegger or bodybuilders or whatever. But then. So now you could look, and then you can see okay, this protein has really changed, So you could probably get a bunch of this protein that is a serotonin reuptake protein or serotonin reuptake enzyme, and you add a bunch of serotonin, and it changes, and you're like, okay, well, what did it change? Well, now it's like slime. Before it was like liquid or whatever. So you're like, okay, something happened, it changed. It's not always as obvious as going from clear to white, but in this case, it probably changed. And then you're like, okay, well, how to run these experiments has got to be extremely complex to figure out okay, this enzyme exists only in between cell neurons. How do you figure that out? Okay, you have to isolate this particular protein, and you're figuring what does this protein do? And they probably have a ton of a lot of academia is going on where you're like, okay, let's design a mouse that doesn't have this protein and see what happens. Okay, now this mouse has more serotonin, whatever, and then
there's a fellow right down the street, right here, a block away from here, who that's what he does.
Yeah.
He does those, he works for Amgen.
Yeah.
He's a biologist, and that's the stuff he does. And he was telling me about one of the things that they have for sale, because what they do is they make, their drugs are all biologic. They do exactly that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Come up with something, and here it is. And he said, yeah, well, you know, we can do all this stuff and we can come up with this drug and we can say, here it is, but it's a little hard to tell what's actually in it.
Yeah.
And apparently with one of their drugs, some Frenchman was looking at it and saying, you know, we think there's this in it. Did you know this was in it? And they go, well, we're not sure, or we're, you know, blah, blah, blah. So all of a sudden there's this discussion about whether or not some substance is contaminating this drug that's been for sale.
Yeah.
FDA approved,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know which one it is, but it doesn't matter to me.
Well, there's a lot of biologics, including actual, like, okay, we're going to give you a virus or something. Even Amgen, they have a virus that they make and sell for the treatment of cancer, melanoma, you know. So, but it could be like, okay, during the processing of this, making this virus, there's a byproduct. There's actually the biologically active component, you know. So if you could isolate that out, but I'm sure they try. They look, you know, and you could look at these things. You put them in a mass spec, or you put them in a NMR machine. You could see everything in there, you know. Like NMR just shows you like these are all the molecules. We're gonna spit out all the molecules, and it's like, okay, that's about what we expected, you know. And then it's like, oh, there's a big thing over here. This is lead, you know. Okay, well, that's probably not part of the virus, you know, or mercury or something. But to go back to that reuptake inhibitor drug, like you have the enzyme that takes the serotonin and brings it back to there. And that's called a reuptake enzyme. And if you inhibit that, you're making Prozac is another protein that just grabs onto that protein, the reuptake.
And in effect mimics the serotonin.
Well, it just grabs onto the reuptake molecule. And so now the serotonin, when it's released, doesn't get put back in the cell.
So you're
because you're
more.
So now you have more, yeah. But just recently, I know somebody that got more and more and more, and now she had heart problems, you know, and that's one of the.
From too much serotonin.
Well, it's probably not maybe a direct relation to the serotonin, but maybe because it is a neurotransmitter, you know. So yeah, but there is something called serotonin disorder or syndrome, too much serotonin, and it can kill you. You know, it's just horrible for your brain. You know, but
well, isn't the runner's high serotonin?
Maybe, or dopamine. You know, I mean, you have so many different.
That's right.
You know,
Dopamine. That's the other.
Yeah. They're the one that is everyone like. Okay, but like, there's probably so many of these things, and like, the ratio has to be just right. You know, and then just right for what? Like, what is ideal? What's your body trying to do? Is your body trying to make you happy? Not necessarily. You know, your body's trying to
survive
when you're young, and then now eventually your body's trying to kill you. Your body's trying to like, okay,
well, is
it's
your
time
body
to go.
Trying to kill you, or is your body, or is it just literally wearing out? I mean, you know, I mean, there's any bearing has a life cycle. You know, how many times are you going to spin it? Somewhere along the line, you know, and at what load? And that's the next thing, at what load?
Yeah.
You know, what do you...
I think it's by design. It seems to have a lifespan, you know, and then your body's like, well, let's try making the vision bad, see if that knocks him off, you know, and it's like, okay, well, that didn't work. What about if we, you know, we'll let the group know he's old by giving him gray hair and old, but then like, let's see if we give him a bad hip, and that'll probably get rid of him, you know, and then pretty soon his teeth are bad, you know, like we'll take his teeth out. And then if none of this works, it's like, okay, let's just get this brain. Let's start making you dumber and slower and weaker.
No, you make him you stop him from walking, and I'm pretty sure every time you can't walk,
mm-hmm. Your days are numbered.
Your days are numbered.
Yeah. Yeah. He's really big. Yeah, I got a big name. You're big. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
You know what?
I can't believe